Today in this video we are going to solve the problem number 21, that is merge two sorted list. Suppose it's given two linked list given here. Okay, two linked list 1 and list 2. We have just merged that linked list, and at the end we return the linked list. After merging we just return the linked list. Make sure we have that that's two linked list that has given, that will be sorted manner, and after merging that will be also sorted manner. Okay, after merging we have to just return up the more the linked list. Okay, see this example, 1 2 4 is my linked list 1, and 1 3 4 this is my linked list 2. Okay, after merging I just 1 and 1 and 2 3 4 4, this is my final sorted linked list. I just return its head. Okay, similarly example 2, taking two list that is empty, and after all also it will be shows empty. And example 3 have uh, one linked list is empty and another was 0, and after merge it will also return as a 0. Okay, let's solve this problem with less time complexity, as well as with understand the problem with a good manner. Okay, let's try to solve. Okay, suppose given 1 2 4 as my one linked list and 1 3 4 as a second linked list. We understand the problem, and after problem we just solve its approaches. How do we solve this problem? Okay, let's understand. This is my head of my linked list 1. This is also my head of a linked list 1. Okay, we just use a pointer approach to solve this problem. Okay, this first of all I use a one pointer which iterated over all this linked list, and I use a second pointer which iterated over all this element of a second linked list, and compare that elements with their value. Suppose this is my head value of linked list, and this is my list 2 head value of linked list 2. We just compare them. List 1 head value is equals to is greater than or smaller than my linked list 2 head dot value. Then we just operation according to my problem. Okay, uh, okay, just erase that. Okay, i use I use a pointer that will be head, that will be, suppose we have a pointer t1 that will be linked list 1. Okay, and we use a point t2 that will be my linked list 2. Okay, we iterated over each element and compare this element with our value, with their value, and merged according to its. And this problem is going to solve by using dummy node approach. Dummy node approach is very important in order to solve the linked list type problem, to sort it or to merge the two linked list. A dummy node is helps to connect the further nodes and further operation also. Okay, let's use and create first of all we need to create a dummy node. Okay, we need to create a dummy node that will be 0, that will be pointing to 0 or -1, whatever you want to be give. And we need to create a temporary node that will be pointing every node after my merging. Okay, that will be now pointing to dummy node. Okay, see this. Okay, we are creating a dummy node, that will be initialize this value -1. Okay, after creating a dummy node we just compare, we use a loop and compare the value of linked list 1 value and linked list 2 value, and after if they're according to its condition, it will be iterated, it will be stored its value. Okay, let's check the condition. We have a condition that we use a loop, while loop. In the while loop we have a, if t1 is not equals to null and t2 is also not equals to null. This is my condition to in order to run my while loop. And we check here, if my t1 dot value is smaller than t2 dot value, I have just now what will find, I found that t1 dot value will be smaller. If t1 dot value will be smaller, what I will do, I will do that temp dot next will be now my t1. Okay, suppose this is my dummy node. Okay, dummy node, and it is pointing as a, this is dummy node and it is pointing as a temp. Okay, this is dummy node and it is pointing as a temp. Okay, dummy node, and it is pointing as a temp. And we just created we just found that the head value will be t1 dot value will be lesser than my t2 dot value. Then I just particularly I just connected my t1 dot value with my sorry what I will do, I just connected in node and just storing the value by head value. If head now I just connected a t1, and what I will do, I will just temp will be now pointing to t1. Okay, and t1 will be now t1 dot next. Okay, so understand this condition, it is very important. T1, if t1 is found as t1 will be smaller as compared to t2 value, then I just connected my temporary value to t1. Okay, now and now my temporary value will be now pointing to this one. After connecting, my temporary value will be now pointing this one. Okay, temporary pointing now this one. And what will we do in the next time? If this is not happen, then what do we do? If these things are not happen, if t1 will be not smaller, then what will t2 will be smaller. Then we'll just write this condition for t2 also. Else part we have write the condition for t2 also. And next m dot next will be 2. Then temp will be now t2, and t2 will be now t2 dot next. Okay, after fast operation, I just found that after fast operation, okay, this is my t1. Okay, yes, this is my t1, and this is also my t2. T1 pointing here and t2 will pointing here. Okay, after comparing this value, t1 will be t2 according to this value. My array will be my linked list will be now sorted. Okay, so here t2 will be lesser than or equals to, that will be a condition I just put here, lesser than or equals to. Okay, now this, if you have found that t1's value 1 is equals to 1, that's why I created a dummy node. We created a dummy node, and we just pointing this dummy node with a temp variable and storing that variable as a 1. We store the value as a 1. After in the second iteration, what will we do? Second iteration, I have that found that my and my t1 now pointing to this, t1 pointing to this, and my t2 will be here, and t1 dot value will be lesser greater than t2 dot value. Where the condition t1 dot value will be lesser than that, else part will be run. And I found that temp dot next, now temp dot next will be pointing to the next node, and temp will be now what will happen, we just created another node, and we just pointing a 1, and temp will be now pointing here, okay, and t2 will be now pointing this one, t2 will be now pointing to this one, okay. And we found that t1 now we are comparing t1 dot value. We found that t1 dot value will be smaller than t2 value. T1 dot value, that's why t1 temp we created we just connected this node with another node. Temp node next will be now pointing to here, and we just storing the value as a 3, and temp will be pointing now here, temp will be now pointing here, and t1 will be pointing also, t1 also moving to here, and t1. Okay, now compare t1 dot value will be t1 with t2. We found that t2 will be smaller and t1 will be larger, that's why t2 will be now pointing here. Sorry, first of all I need to t2 temp will be connected with t2. I just created another node, now this will be pointing here. What is the value? value, I think 4. I think 4. 4. Storing 3. The value will. Oh, sorry. Sorry. I made mistake. 1, 2. Where will be 2? Make mistake. I just storing here value. My value will be here. It will be 2 here. And I just did it. Okay. Now what will happen? Okay. Now what will happen? I just compared T1 with T2. I just found that T2 will be much smaller. Then I just store the T2 here. T2 will be storing here. A temp will be now pointing here. T2 will be now pointing to here. Temp will be now pointing to here. And T2 will be here. Okay. Sorry, this is very difficult. Okay. And now we compared with T1, T2. And I just pointing T2 will to next node. T2 will be now here. And just we compare the value. We just compared its value. That T2, I found that T1, T12 both are equal. That's why now my T1 will be what? My T1 will be now pointing to its next node. The next node of T1 will be null. So T1 will be now pointing to null. Pointing to null. And and we connected here. And we have to connect it here. That the value as a 4 and temp will be now pointing to here. And further the another node is create another now our temp will be pointing to another 4 node and temp will be pointing to here. After operating this all, if I found that my T1 or T2 will be some element will be present, then what we will do? I just create after loop. I just created if T1 will be not if T1 will be not null after loop. I just created temp next. Temp dot next will be now T1, and in the else part, if T1 is not null, or if other one T2 will also null not null, we will check just now. Temp dot next will be now into T2. After all these operation, we just return dummy dot next. Dummy dot next means head. Head. Okay. See this. What is my dummy dot next? This is my dummy node. This is my dummy node. This is my dummy node, and dummy dot next means this is now this is my head. This is my head value. Okay. Let's run the code. Checking the run code. Okay. Here already defined the constructor and all. Now we have just copy this one. We found T1 will be L1, so list 1. This into T1. Okay, this is the T1 will now lit, and similarly T2 will be created, who's pointing to second head of the second linked list. What will we do now? We will create a dummy node. Okay, we will create a dummy node pointing to that will be created its value -1, and we create a temporary variable that will be used to temp each node. That will be dummy. That will assign with a dummy. And we run now. We run a while loop. Well, is T1 will be not null. Caps lock is on. Okay. Null, and my loop will be run until my T2 will also be null. I run the code until my condition is not satisfied. If I found that my T1 dot value will be smaller than t2 dot value, then what I will do? Then I just pointing temp dot next with t1, and temp will be now pointing to t1. Okay, and t1 will be t1 dot next. Okay, for this we will just copy this part. For the second, if my t2 will be greater than, then what will we do? This will make, sorry, I just write the else part. My else part will be for t2. I just copy it, and in place of t1 I just make it into t2. Okay, after all this operation, if I found that my t1 or t2 which is present or not, which will be now it will be empty. If any element is found or not, I just what will do? I just check that if any one element is found. If any element is found, then I just make temp dot next with t1. Then similarly for t2 also, t2 is found or not. At the end I just return its at the end I just return its head means dummy dot next. I just explain that. If you not understand it properly, just go through the video, and I also uh, provided the solution in my description. Code will be also available. You can watch. I just revise you another times. I created a dummy node, two pointer t1 and t2, that will be pointing the head of the linked list, and you create a dummy node in order to merge that all the elements, and dummy will be pointing to temp. If t1 will be smaller than t2 value, then temp will be now will pointing to the t1, and temp will t1 will be now t2 or t1 dot next. Similarly, if t1 is greater than t2, similarly temp will be pointing to t2, and temp dot next will pointing to t2, and temp will be t2. So t2 will be t2 dot next. If after all operation, if I found that my t1 is some element is present, then I just temp dot next will be t1, and similarly for temp dot next will be t2. Okay, let's run the code. If you understand properly, then do some like, share, subscribes. I am just starting the video. I hope no one else going to watch until this, because I know that I not understand. I can't understand you properly, but I tried. I put my 100% to understanding you. Let's submit the answer. What will you answer? It's accepted. It's accepted all these cases. I hope it will be okay. It's 100%. Okay. Thank you for watching the video properly. Okay, code will be available. All, if you not understand properly, go through the approaches. I have understanding you properly. Thank you. Have a nice day.